Hello, everyone. I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha, and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm really grateful that you're listening, subscribing, commenting, and all that good stuff. I really appreciate your support. And in this one, I wanted to speak to you about boundaries and how or why I believe boundaries are so difficult in general for people to set. I think in general people or humanity in general doesn't have a good idea of how to set boundaries because we don't have proper boundaries set with our parents, and our parents don't teach us how to set proper boundaries, and so our teachers don't teach us how to do that either, and then this cycle perpetuates so that when we end up with children, we don't teach our children how to set proper boundaries, and then it goes on and on and on. When we're in a relationship, we don't know how to set proper boundaries because we weren't taught by our parents how to do it, and you know what I mean. So of course, if you have had a parent who knew how to set proper boundaries and who were able to model that for you, you would know how to do that for yourself, and then you'd be able to do it for in your relationships or for other people or in your job or whatever it might be, right? Unfortunately, most of us are in the opposite situation where our parents were not only terrible at setting boundaries, but actually didn't permit it. They wanted us not to have boundaries against them at all because they wanted us to either merge with them, or they were afraid of letting us go, or they were a little bit too clingy or possessive, or they just were overprotective as parents. And that's definitely has been, in the experience of a lot of people out there. And so in that case as well, we don't have any idea how to set boundaries because we just don't know what boundaries even mean. And whatever situation you're in, you're probably noticing, if you're an adult right now or over the age of 21 or even 15, you probably are encountering situations where you should be setting boundaries, and you'll know that you should be setting a particular boundary in a situation by how you feel irked by the situation, or it kind of brings up feelings of anger or resentment or frustration inside of you because that person is crossing over a boundary, and that's causing you to feel like your privacy is being violated, right? And so there's many ways to know how your boundary is being stepped over. Different people feel it differently. I always feel it like a rush of anger in my heart, and I start feeling really hot, and I start feeling really angry, basically, because I feel like the person doesn't understand where I stand, or doesn't want to even understand where I stand and how to get along with me better. And so, of course, every person is going to have a different way of feeling that boundary step over. But what happens in a lot of cases, unfortunately it happens with me all the time, is that I'll notice that my boundary is being stepped over, but because I'm not used to it and I'm not used to realizing that it's my boundary being stepped over, not something else, I won't at first know that it's a boundary situation, right? So I won't at first. I'll blame myself. I'll be like, oh well, it must be my fault. That's the reason they did what they did. Or I'll blame them. They'll be like, well, they probably don't know because they don't know any better, or they're a terrible person, or whatever it might be. And I'll either door slam them, or I'll run away, or I'll hide from the person. I'll isolate myself. I'll get angry and walk away, or do all these things. Mostly I'll get angry with myself, right? Because I don't understand. I'm not really clear yet. I'm building the clarity, but I'm not clear yet what a boundary, what it means to me when a boundary is being stepped over, and what is it exactly that causes me to feel that way. Because that's another thing, your boundary rules, the boundaries that you've set up for yourself, are completely different from my boundary rules, right? So for some reason, I get really, really irked when someone speaks on their telephone or in their cell phone in front of me when I'm on a date, but another person might be completely fine with that, right? So different people have different boundaries and different levels of where the boundary lays, right? So that's also something that causes things to be different, because some person might look at you and say, and be perturbed or surprised or angry that your boundary is being stepped over, where they're like, well, this is just normal, why are you getting upset about it, right? Whereas for you, it's a huge deal. So that also, again, is a problem, because that's another reason why boundaries are such a hard thing to do. Because then you explain yourself, and you have to be like, well, this is why I don't like it because blah 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 blah. Again, you shouldn't have to explain yourself, because people should just be like, all right, this is your boundary, I understand, I'm not going to step over it. But that's not how the real world works, right? So there's many reasons why people will step over your boundary. They perhaps don't understand it. They probably don't do it intentionally. Perhaps sometimes they do it intentionally because they want to irk you. There's many reasons they might do it. Your problem is not why they do it or how they do it. Is that they are doing it, and how are you going to deal with it? The reason I'm doing this video is because I noticed that even though I've been working with boundaries and boundary setting for so long now, I would say 5 years at least, I'm still so bad at it. Because what happens to me as an INFJ, and I think that's the whole issue behind this, is that as an INFJ, I've been taught all my life to create harmony in my relationships. Not only by myself, but other people around me have taught me that as well. So I have this thing inside of me that wants harmony in relationships. And I've kind of made this assumption, and a lot of INFJs make this assumption, that you're only going to get harmony by pushing down your desires, pushing down any of the needs that you might have, not listening to any of your intuitions or intuitive feelings, and listening to everyone else's needs and desires, fulfilling them first over your own needs. And that's how you create harmony in a relationship. So that's how INFJs do it. We will not take care of ourselves. We won't take care of our boundary issues. We won't take care of our settings, our boundary settings. We won't take care of any of our needs, desires, dreams, any of that. Everyone else's needs and desires come over ours. Of course, you can't live like that sustainably for a long period of time. That's why what usually happens is that we end up door slamming, or getting angry, or pissing off, or people are running away, or all of those things that you've probably done in the past that I have definitely done, right? So as I'm noticing now that I'm trying to set boundaries, and I'm not good at it, but I'm noticing that I also don't know what a lot of my boundaries are, because I'm learning about them, and new boundary situations keep on coming up all the time. So I have learned that one of my boundaries, or one of my major pet peeves, is I don't like when people are on their phones in the grocery lineup. It really makes me angry. Now, it's a very small boundary, it doesn't really matter because it's not something someone's doing to me, but I do get angry on behalf of the person, the cashier, who has to deal with this person when they're on their phone blabbing away and not paying attention to what's going on, right? That's a very small thing, but I know that that's a big thing about me, and I know that if someone did that in front of me, I'd be really angry about it. I wouldn't do anything about it, but I'd be angry about it. But other things are coming up for me that I don't like when people put me down, when they are derogatory towards me. Whereas this was something that I would completely laugh off or not even think twice about when I was younger, because people did that to me all the time and I assumed it was just the way of the world. But now I'm noticing that no, it's not the way of the world, and if it is, it shouldn't be. And I don't like being put down. I don't like it when people insult me. I don't like it when people are even doing it in a funny fashion. So they're making a joke out of it, but they're putting me down. I don't like it at all. And so, I'm talking about this with people who are around me who are doing it, and I'm saying, okay, I don't like this. Please don't do that again. So I'm setting up a boundary. The funny thing is that, because I'm so not used to setting boundaries and it's such a new thing for me, even though I've been doing it for 5 years, it's still very new compared to how long I've been alive. It's not even part of my life. It's a very small part of my life now. So, as I've been alive for 40 years, it's like 1/5 of my life, 1/8 of my life. So it's a tiny part, right? And so for 35 years, I did not set any boundaries. I let people trample all over my feelings, my desires, my hopes, and I just did not do anything about it. And so I don't know how to deal with that. I'm still learning. And so when these feelings of the feeling that, oh, I think someone's stepping over my boundary comes up, first of all, as I said, I don't realize that it is someone doing that to me. But as soon as I do realize, and then every person is going to have their own feelings regarding this, so you might notice it as a bubbling up of anger inside of your stomach, or you might think of it as your forehead might get really hot, or you might start feeling like you want to run away, or you might start feeling like you want to punch the person in the face. There might be lots of different things that different people will feel when their boundaries are being stepped over. And so you have to figure that out for yourself. The next time this happens, pay attention. Pay attention to your body, pay attention to your feelings, your emotions, your face, your jaw. Is it clenching up? Are your fists clenching up? How does your heart feel? How does your belly feel? feel all that, and then you realize that this is your boundary stepping over reaction, right? If someone's stepping over your boundaries, this is your reaction. So you have to pay attention to it next time around as well. Once you know that this is happening, so once you're in the mode and you realize, okay, this is my boundary being stepped over, the next thing you're probably going to do is what your typical reaction is to boundaries being stepped over. And for me, my typical reaction is to ignore it at first. And that used to be my typical reaction. Now I'm trying not to be that way, but even so, because I'm not used to this whole thing about, making sure that I lay down my boundaries very clearly, sometimes if it does happen, I'm still capable of ignoring it. I'm still like, all right, well, maybe they didn't know, maybe I'm just being too touchy, maybe I'm being too sensitive, all that stuff, right? Eventually, though, if it keeps on happening, I'll be like, well, no, I can't stand this anymore. I can't do it. I need to say something about this. And I will, right? So I will say something about it, and I'll try to be as nice about it as possible, because I know that I don't want to berate the other person. I don't want to put them down. I don't want to be yelling at them or mad at them. It's not their fault. They probably don't even understand why this is a boundary for me, but it is, right? And I might not understand someone else's boundaries. So I will lay it down as nicely as possible and say, please don't do this anymore. I don't like it. And that's it, right? Well, that's not really it, because what happens after is that I'll go back to my room, or I'll be by myself, and I will be in a shame storm. And it happens to me every single time, and I'm really trying to work on it. That's why I wanted to do this video, which is already getting so long. Oh my gosh, almost done. So I'll get into a shame storm where I'm thinking to myself, why did I do that? Why can't I just be less sensitive? What's wrong with me? Why do I always have to be so touchy about everything? Why can't I let things go, right? And so I'll get into this mode of really hating myself, because I'm like, why can't I just let things go? Why do I have to say things out loud? But because I know I go through this, and I've gone through these iterations many times, I know that this shame storm won't last long, because instantaneously I'll tell myself, I had to do it. I couldn't bear them stepping over my boundary over and over again. I would not want our relationship to fail, because either I let them over my boundary over and over again, they step over my boundaries over and over again, and I let them do it, and then the relationship fails because I run away or door slam, or I speak up, say something, and then the person understands it, and then they do what I ask them to do, which means that our relationship still stays stable, and it keeps on going, thankfully. Or they don't like that I've said something, resent me for it, and get angry with me and put me down for it, which means that obviously they're not the kind of person I want in my life, right? So it's a really good way of actually culling out people that you don't want from your life, in your life, because then you can tell them, I don't like when you do this, and if they don't like you telling them that, then obviously they're not the right person to have around, right? I mean, if someone can't take feedback in even such a nice way, then what is the whole point, right? So I wanted to share this whole loop of not realizing what a boundary is, and then realizing it, and then telling the person to stop, and then going into a shame storm, and then coming out of it. I wanted to share this whole thing with you, because I think this is what happens to a person when they're learning about boundary setting. And this is like the beginning stages of things, because I really truly believe, I think I'll be in this stage for a long time to come, because I'm really terrible at setting boundaries, because obviously I want harmony, I want people to like me, I want people to be happy, and I think in my head for some reason that if I set a boundary, then people are going to hate me. And I'm fine with people hating me, but I don't like people upsetting people or hurting them because I've said something. And so there's a lot of different issues here. I know as an INFJ, you're probably thinking, yeah, I get it. I don't like setting boundaries either. Many people don't like setting boundaries because we're not, as I said, taught to do it. But I wanted to share this whole, scenario with you, because you're probably going through that as well if you're learning how to set boundaries recently, if you just started learning it. And hopefully I'll be able to share a video in a year or so, or 2 years, saying, hey, I'm much better at setting boundaries. But for now, obviously, I'm terrible at it. Anyways, I hope this helps you. Of course, please message me or comment or let me know if you have any questions about boundary setting, because I am learning a lot about it right now. I'm reading a lot about it, and I really love it. I love all of the books that Brené Brown's written on it, but also I've just been doing a lot of research by, testing it on myself, experimenting. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I will definitely do a video about it. Again, thank you so much for listening, even though this is such a long video, and I shall see you the next time around. Bye.